Good morning, everybody. I would like to call this Planning and Development Committee meeting to order on 9 o'clock, May 3rd, 2023. Anybody have any late items? No?
Looks pretty quiet, eh?
Looks pretty quiet. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda? Ian? John? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, adoption of the minutes. Adoption that the minutes of the Planning Development Committee held on April 19th, 2023 be adopted.
Thank you. You're reading the wrong page.
Oh, geez, you know what? I'm reading the wrong page. Sorry, I'm reading those minutes. Thanks, Scott.
Let's approve those.
Sorry, you're right. Recommended that the minutes of the Planning and Development Committee meeting held 3rd, 2023 be adopted. Mover.
I'll move that too.
John, great. Hey, John is paying attention. All right, thank you very much. Scott, take it away on development services update.
Okay, we have our list of applications, the ones in bold that be considered by council next week. Yeah, moving stuff along, a couple new ones. 1455 Silver Sands Road. So that's the Sick Moose Sands Resort. So they have a couple kind of minor DVP things they want addressed. They've made an application. John and I went out and met with them. John, the bylaw officer, and I went out and met with them. And we see a bunch of stuff they could look at. So maybe in the same bucket as the Silver Sands RV park, where yeah, they, you know, just some tweaks here and there to make things work better. But yeah, really great work with. They're really proud of their park, and they've done a good job over there. So we'll work with them on that. Yeah, nothing else really interesting on there, but available for any questions.
Okay, go. Thanks very much, Scott. Go ahead there, Ian.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can just give a quick update what's happening at 5:30. I've had several people ask about that. If you could just say what they're doing. And
Yeah, so they're doing the site grading and the underground installation of all the site drainage and servicing.
so they're doing that part of, and that's part of the services agreement that you had. So sewer, water.
Yeah, they're doing all the on-site stuff right now. So the servicing agreement is for the off-site stuff that influences our stuff, but they're doing kind of their own, installing their own services on site.
Okay. And then we're still waiting additional information for 534 Main.
534, right? Yeah.
And just so I'm correct on it, because I had some questions and I want to make sure I'm giving the right information. It's because it was a former contaminated site, or it was a service station, something with fuel on it, correct?
Right. So 530 Main, they're in this process where, because there was a use on it, so it could be a service station, or it could be, you know, like in the case of Wet Up, it was a marina where there was fuel, right?
Right.
So they put in the special category, and before you can move forward with it, the province must have it registered and then cleared as a contaminated site. So they're in the process of getting it cleared. So I had a question. It's like, oh, I heard the site's contaminated. I'm like, I don't know if it's contaminated. The province doesn't know it's contaminated. We want to figure that out. Once they figure that out, then you can issue a development permit.
Right. And then 530 Main never had those issues.
Correct.
That's what they're going for. Okay. All right. Yeah, I just want to make sure that information is out there, because there's obviously a lot of activity there and people are asking lots of questions. So, and then just another question.
Yep.
I saw a couple of new ones on here. I don't know if they were Montcalm Crescent and then number 1 Sycamoose Creek Frontage Road. What are those?
So number 1 Moose Creek Frontage Road. So that's a subdivision that we looked at, and for the variance for the road width, so the 14 lots down at the very southern.
Oh, there, okay.
So this is the development permit for the riparian areas.
All right,
So
okay.
they've got everything complete now, so we'll probably bring that to the next meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
And then the other one, Montcalm, yeah, they're building a oversized garage, so it's kind of a minor one, but that'll be at the next meeting.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, Scott, just going back to Mountain Park. The procedure is when you do your application, you have to fill out a site profile.
Right.
And when you fill out that site profile, you indicate, the history of the service station or it could even be a oil tank that in the ground that they use for heating their home or heating the building. So then when you fill that out, that does that determine, or does this province already have a blanket map of the province of all these brown sites?
Yeah, so they're creating that map, right? So when you check off, like you write down what you've done on the property. And then when we get it, we look at it and they're like, okay, they've indicated, yes, these uses have occurred. And we automatically send it to the province. And then it's kind of in the province's hand to, number one, it could be, it's already on their map. And they say, hey, it's on our map. We know about it. We know what you've done in the past, move on. Or they say, it's not on our map. What have you done in the past? Or they could say, in the original Mountain Park, because there wasn't any ground disturbance or anything, it was like, hey, you can continue with this renovation of the building and move on.
Yeah.
But right now I think they're still at the what happened on that property in the past stage.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, John, go ahead.
They already have testing wells in that building. Like that's been tested before, like it had to be for when Bob moved in. For the Truesville Community Church. So would it not be registered already then?
And that's the guy, it would be, because it would already be in the process.
Yeah.
Because they did give that release saying, hey, you can use it for Mountain Park Motorsports. So they gave that release, but now they want to go and they want to start digging up and moving stuff around. So as soon as you
Dig it up.
they have to expose whatever's underground, then
I see.
Yeah, we made an application for Mountain Park to just add a stairwell on the side, but we used the existing foundation. So we weren't really disturbing anything. We did have a phase 1 and phase 2 done on the property and it came back fine, but I don't know why they're doing it again, but they are. Okay, go ahead, Ian.
Different regulations. Do we know, like, since they're doing the works there, are they still planning on going forward with the gas station?
Yep.
They are?
Just so you know, they were digging on the weekend and there was a hole there and he was digging and you could see that when he started digging, the soil was dry. And then when he got down really deep, the soil started turning dark.
Yeah.
So, right now it's not the best time to be putting the fuel tank when the water's high because the river's not very far away.
No.
So for sure, so they'll have to work fast and probably de-water and stuff like that. Okay, any other comments on the current applications? We're good. Deb, you're good? Thank you. All right, we're moving on to new business. Building regulation bylaw amendment number 1040/2023. Scott, you have the floor.
Yeah, so this is kind of a continuation of their builder's breakfast, the changes that the province has required. So the step 3 of the energy step code has been implemented by the province for all Part 9 buildings, which are single family dwellings, simple buildings. So the energy efficiency requirements right now, because the building code has changed, essentially you have to have an energy advisor at the start of the project and determine that it meets step 3 of the building code. What these amendments would do, it would allow for the prescriptive based method where you don't need an energy advisor and you just follow whatever the code says for meeting that. So it gives another option, and then also updates our zoning bylaw building regulation bylaw with some of the language from that. So there's a whole new section, a division 18 on the energy conservation and greenhouse gas emissions. Another aspect of this one is the enforcement side of it. So a new Division 22 enforcement, contravention and penalties. So right now we're kind of limited where if someone's building, we put a stop work order on it and they continue building, then we have to go through a court process, get an injunction to get them to stop. Can come to council and ask for immediate action to take it down. And all those things take a lot of time. And if someone just keeps working, maybe they don't care. So this would just give us another tool where we'll add we can issue a ticket to them. So every day they continue work, we can issue them a $100 ticket or whatever the ticketing is. And then that's usually a little faster method of getting someone to stop doing the work. And right now we don't have that tool. And then some other minor ones, kind of call them housekeeping items. You have a red line version of the bylaw. You can see the changes that are proposed. Yeah, kind of adding some definition step code. Adding that we can accept application through our online portal. But yeah, you have to look to see them all. We didn't have a step for insulation inspections, so we've added that. We've always been doing it, but yeah, we didn't have it in our bylaw. And I think that's mostly it. And then adding just updating the climate data on the Schedule D, just the climatic zone. So we're in climatic zone number 5. Yeah, not sure what we were in before, but
I think 4. I think Brian was saying 4, Brian Anderson. Okay, I'll read the recommendation and then we'll discussion. Recommended that the District of Sicamous Planning and Development Committee recommend the District of Sicamous Building Amendment Bylaw number 1040/2023 be considered by the District of Sicamous Council for first, second, and third reading. Can I have a mover? John, seconder?
Second.
Deb? Okay, discussion. Anybody have any comments or concerns? Go ahead, there, Ian.
Yeah, boy, I always seem to be talking on this stuff. Construction value, it's something you've redlined here, and I just want to have you talk about a little bit more why and why we're changing that section.
Yeah, so I think it was the highest total cost of proposed building or structure determined from an executed construction contract or an estimated value of the proposed building or structure established by the building official in the absence of a contract. And I think they've just kind of made us to get a little bit more clear of what we expect to be considered in construction value. I mean, it always ends with or is determined by the building official. So, but yeah, just making it more clear of what information we're looking for in the definition of construction value.
So is it normal to include contractors' profit and overhead in that calculation?
Yes.
It is.
Scott, is that something new that we've just done? Because I know one of the developers have asked me about that we to try to figure out profit and overhead of the contractor. It's I guess you'd think that would be kind of confidential or whatever, but just is it something that other municipalities do?
Yeah, and typically it's like whatever the building contract says is the final price payable to the contractors.
Okay. Go ahead there, Deb.
Yeah, on that same note, maybe I'm missing something, but it does seem like it's there's a lot of kind of piling on with this stuff. When I brought in, like all of the homes on Martin Street and was doing them, the construction value seen from what I recall was just what was the cost of the deck and stairs that we added. It wasn't, like a lot of the other things that seem to be getting included. I don't know. Just I'm wondering if some of these things, if it's just a bit of a cash grab, is like it. If we're just starting to make these things a bit prohibitive.
Scott, any comment?
Well, I think often it's you're looking at the value of the permit, I think it's, 0.05% of the value, it's like 5 per thousand or $8 per thousand. So it's a very, very low, and I guess the question, I had someone question how much they're paying for their building permit. And I said, well, are you doing the work? And they're like, no. I'm like, you're hiring someone? Yes. Are you an expert to oversee their work? And they're like, no. I'm like, do you think it's worth, 0.5% of the value of the project to have an expert oversee their work? I guess so. So I mean, that's the service we're providing. We're having an expert oversee the contractor's work. I think it's probably pretty good value for what you're getting. A lot of municipalities have a computer program that, you put in all this data into the use of the building and it generates what the probable cost of this building is going to be. And it would take in all the things in this definition. Previously, it was more determined by the building official. So the building official could always use that program and determine, is the cost close enough? I think right now it's making it more clear what we're looking for. So it is actually more upfront.
Okay. One other one, Scott, I was gonna ask, you're done, Deb?
Yep.
That's good. Okay, one other thing, commercial, it says in here, new home constructed. Does commercial buildings have to have this step code too?
That would have been a better question for Kenny. I don't believe it applies to the part 3 yet. So the commercial building was a part 9 building.
Yeah.
Would, but if it's a part 3 building, a complex building, it would.
Okay. Okay. All right. Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're gonna take out the citing permit because we're gonna deal with that later, right?
Right. So on this bylaw 1040, I took out the citing permit.
Okay, great. And then, so the changes that, because I'm just trying to go through this. And I was trying to figure out what ones were part of the step code and which ones were added in to give you extra enforcement. So that I wasn't entirely clear on. So maybe I'll just go through some of these. Under 1604, I assume F, when installation air and vapor barrier are complete, but prior to installation of material finish.
Right.
Was that that kind of housekeeping one that you said that you were doing that already, but it wasn't actually in the code or the bylaw?
Right.
Okay. And then, division 18, I assume that's the guts of, step code.
Exactly.
Okay. Alrighty. And that's really determined by the province. And this is really language that would come from the province.
Yeah, and this is language more for the prescriptive side of things.
Right.
Yeah.
So that if you wanted to go that path without the qualified, without the energy. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And then, sorry, I'm just, cut me off here. And then the enforcement side of stuff. Where does this kind of emanate from?
So this is typically what you'd find in most of our bylaws.
Yeah.
So the business bylaw or another bylaw where we use ticketing to enforce it. Right now with this building regulation bylaw, we don't have the ability to ticket if someone's doing something contrary, if they're building without a building permit, or they're moving forward with their construction without getting the inspections. Then you can ticket them and say, hey, you need to, because we post a stop work notice.
Mhm.
Sometimes they keep going.
Mhm.
So then what is our next step? It's get a court injunction to get them to stop work. That takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, or remedial action, bring it to council. Council has to say remedial action, then we have to go. And so the ticketing works to, like an unsightly, right? It's like $100 every day or $500 every day. And it's like, then the guy swinging the hammer, the guy who's doing the work, he's seeing it, right? It's like, he's not like, hey, they gave me a stop work order, I'm working and I haven't heard from them in 2 weeks. It must be good.
So this is a provision that we're putting in. It's not part of step code.
Correct.
Okay. So I think we should dive into that a little bit more because this is new, right?
Yeah.
This is not something that we ever did in Sycamoose prior to if we pass this bylaw.
Right. So yeah, not on the building regulation file.
So could we just spend a few minutes on that and maybe you can take us through this section? Because I think it's worth taking a look at what's in there and what the implications of this are, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Perfect.
So then, just, the new section, so Division 21. The bylaw may be enforced by a peace officer, bylaw officer, building official, designate of the development services manager. The issuance of a ticket or bylaw notice or proceeding under the Offence Act does not preclude the district from enforcement remedy by other proceedings available by law. So that just says that, who can enforce the bylaw and then the methods we have for ticketing. And that just says every person who contravenes or violates any provisions of this bylaw, causes, prevents, suffers, allows any thing to be done in contravention of the bylaw, that neglects or fails to do anything required by the bylaw, commits a contravention and offense each day that the offense continues constitutes separate offense. That's kind of laying it out there that if you contravene the bylaw, it's an offense, and each and every day that you continue.
Each occurrence.
Yeah, each occurrence. So you went out there every single day and put up another rafter, then every single day you could issue a ticket and say, you're in contravention of the bylaw. Person convicted of offense or found guilty, contravention of it is liable if proceedings are brought under the Offence Act, pay a fine to a maximum of $50,000, such other amounts as the court may impose in relation to the offense. Ticket is issued under the MTI bylaw, pay a penalty to a maximum authorized under the bylaw enforcement ticket regulation.
Could I just stop you there for
Yeah.
a minute? The MTI bylaw, is that that's basically the reverse onus one, or we're writing out a physical ticket? Or we're not mailing them the ticket?
We're writing out a physical ticket
Right.
and handing it to them.
Okay.
And then if bylaw notice is issued under the bylaw notice enforcement act, so that's the one that we can mail.
Right.
To pay a penalty to a maximum authorized under the local government bylaw notice enforcement act. Those are the kind of the three ways to do it. 50,000 under the Offence Act. That's what we go to court and we say, hey, these guys have been doing this and it's causing damage or whatever, and the judge can make a decision. Then the second one is the MTI, and then the third one is the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw, which we don't have in place right now.
Right. That's the one we talked about at council.
And then the payment of fine or penalty under this does not relieve a person from paying amounts going to the district under fees and charges bylaw.
Scott, do we have a lot of problem with enforcement or people, going ahead without permits?
I think we probably have a dozen a year of people going ahead without permits. First step is to say, hey, you need a permit. Most people get permits. We have one guy out on Graham Road now who's going forward despite his stop work order. So you have to bring that to council and kind of figure out a way to make it known that he's not supposed to continue. You always start with apply for a permit, and then the second step is helping them understand what's required. But yeah, I'd say probably a dozen a year people start without a permit, and probably 2, 3 might continue or might ignore us.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any?
Well, I just,
Wrapped up here.
well, no, I just have some concerns over this because it's along the same lines as the citing bylaw. Like I can see when they're both working in conjunction, this is getting pretty prescriptive, and I know planning departments love prescriptive. But if this taken in conjunction with the citing permit, I think I have some concerns over it in terms of the ability to take fines and level them at $100 a day for what could be relatively minor infractions, right? Like I understand that there's going to be a certain level of discretion there, but this discretion is going to be, on the bylaw officer enforcing this, right? I'm not convinced that this is needed based on the level of non-compliance we're seeing, right? I think this is a big piece that it needs to be considered, and certainly needs to be considered if we're going to do the citing bylaw too. Because the citing bylaw, correct me if I'm wrong, now I guess I'm conflating these two, but but this is kind of where my brain is, that it's basically any shed or any area over about 107 feet. It's like a 10 by 10, and anything over a 10 by 10 would need a siting permit.
Anything over 10 by 10 needs,
Needs a building permit, but it would also need a siting permit too.
no, so if it was under 10 by 10. And it didn't meet. the
Oh,
condition.
okay, I see what you're saying. Then it needs a siting permit. And if they didn't get the siting permit, let's just say that would be a contravention and be they could have fine for not getting a siting permit. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of not there, you know, because I could see someone innocently going and I understand how there is levels in which we tell them like, hey, you need to have this permit and you have this, but there's also something to be said about people feeling like they can do certain things on the property without the town coming in and kind of infringing on this thing that, you know, we like to call freedom. And, you know, and I mean, this combined with that, I'm not kind of there on it. And I'm not saying no, but I'm saying yes on this at this point, because I think this is, I get why you want it. I'm just trying to think through what are the implications of this. And I don't think, and there's a lot of stuff going through my head right now, and I'm not sure if this is going to get us to where we want to be. I get why, you know, I can see the intent behind it. I just wonder if it would actually do more harm and backfire than it would actually lead to more compliance. But, you know, I'll maybe, you know, if you want.
Scott.
So right now, if someone didn't cite a structure or building, we can issue fines through the zoning bylaw. So we do have that tool in the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so why do we need this?
I think the idea is that we don't want to issue fine, like, so this it has to do with the building bylaw. So this, you know, that's what that for. All things, someone starts pouring a foundation without a building permit, then we can say, hey, you need a permit, please get one. They don't get one, we can issue $100 fine. So moving to citing permits. So right now, if someone doesn't cite their building correctly, we can issue them a ticket. And we say, hey, you need to move your building. And they're like, well, I already built it. It's like, well, you still need to move it. So then I have to go through a variance. So the citing permits hope to correct that, where it's like, hey, do I need a permit for this? Yes. It's a citing permit. You just show us where this building is going to be on the property, and then you're good to go. And then, you know, it'll be likely a $20 or $50 application where staff can look at it and get the building cited before they build it, and we don't have to ask them to move it, or enforcement through the zoning bylaw, or enforcement through this.
Good with that, Ian?
Well, no, I mean, I can see that this is extra paper, this is extra workload.
Go ahead, Scott.
I think it's less paper and less workload, because it's all after the fact, like going through the variance. It's more time and more workload. The bylaw officer chasing someone around takes more time, while, you know, a citing permit could address some of those issues at the beginning. And in this case, a $100 ticket could get someone's attention faster than a stop work notice, where they're like, I'm gonna keep working.
So let me throw something out here. I mean, if you are a property owner, Sycamore say, and you're going 9.5 by 9.5, you know, little garden shed. Yeah, little garden shed. And then I go and I tell you, oh, by the way, you need to come to City Hall, pay $50 and get the citing permit. Staff's gonna take, depending on how busy you are, some level of time, you know, I don't know, maybe at least a couple of weeks. And you need to do that before you do anything. And if you don't, I could find you every single day that little shed is up. What would your sense of local government be under those scenarios? Is what I'm thinking of. Because most people would think it's totally reasonable for me to put a shed in my backyard or whatever, right? Why do we have to get involved down to that kind of granular level?
You're talking about citing permits?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're mixing the two of them up. Yeah.
No, well, I am because it kind of goes into the enforcement thing, right? Because if you didn't have that, then, yeah, so I am, and I apologize because I did want them separated out. But that's the scenario I'm thinking of.
Well, maybe why don't we do this? Why don't we get this to the council? The step code, let's get the step code off the plate, the citing
But
permit.
this isn't just step code.
I know this is.
Like, this doesn't have to be here and as part of step code. Step code's one thing, these enforcement and contravention penalties, that has nothing to do with step code.
Yeah,
So it doesn't actually have to be here as part of the step code decision or discussion.
you're worried about the enforcement part.
I am, yeah. I actually don't know if we've done enough to actually consider all the unintended consequences of this. And sometimes just because you have tools for, compliance, if they're not done properly, or if they're not instituted properly, you will just get a lot of pushback and get non-compliance. I mean, it's some of the stuff we've been talking about, at the provincial level that we're frustrated with. And I want to make sure we're not putting in things that are just going to frustrate what would normally be,
No, good comments.
Yeah.
Scott, you were gonna say something.
I was gonna say, you asked what sense of community or local government that would be if. And it's often the opposite. It's like, hey, I don't want zoning on my property. I certainly want my neighbor to have zoning on his property. I don't want citing permits on my property. I certainly want my neighbor to have citing permits on his property. And a lot of these smaller structures, we're not going out looking. Our bylaw officer is not going out looking them. When he sees them, if he sees them, he typically ignores them unless it's very obvious and there's like another hazard issue involved. It's someone who's living next door to something and they say, hey, this guy built this thing right next to my fence, right where, the sun for my petunias went, or the snow is gonna slide off and land in my yard. That's what we see. That's what we're trying to correct. And it's people who coming in, what good is local government if you can't stop my neighbor from negatively impacting my property? So that's kind of the tool we're using to answer those questions.
Okay, thanks, Scott. John, go ahead.
You have enforcement for the citing under the zoning though currently, right?
Right.
Yeah, so what Ian's talking about is in this building. Actually, the building code. Development changes changes in the building code. Why the extra layer, right? Like that's why I'm trying. If we have enforcement in one direction, what's the extra layer for?
So taking, if I can,
Go ahead.
Yeah,
taking citing permits out of it, like forget citing permits, building code. You're allowed to build a new single family dwelling on your property, smack dab in the middle, you start pouring a foundation, you haven't got a building permit. That's where this tool would come in, this enforcement tool.
Yeah.
Because it meets the zoning, it meets the setbacks, it's still, you didn't get a building.
But we gotta get it to council, the step code. We gotta get the step code to council. And I know where you're coming from, Ian.
I wonder if I can make an amendment here, is that we just deal with the step code, get that to council, council's got to pass that. This, we can get to council on a separate item too, I think, rather than trying to, because the step code is, I mean, that's mandatory, that has to go. The enforcement contribution and penalties, the division 21, that's discretionary up to council, right? So to me, and citing permits, that's another kind of ball of wax.
Yeah. Scott, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Why don't we defeat this and you can, and we can, or do you want to amend it?
I don't think there's motion, so you can just say recommend whatever you want to recommend, excluding whatever you want to exclude.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to exclude division 21. From the recommendation, or how do you want to do this? I'll make a recommendation to have this divided like, basically what I'm saying is I think we should deal with this separately, Scott. So I don't want to do something here and say you send it to council and recommend the whole thing doesn't go through. I think it's two separate things here. So recommend that we pass it with the exclusion of Division 21. And then we have a bigger discussion around the enforcement convention, contravention penalties. That's a separate thing. Does that sound?
Yeah, how about this, Kelly? I mean, we are having our little workshops, development workshops with zoning.
Yeah.
Could we not slip this in under the step, I mean, by the next developmental planning committee, Scott can have the step code and we can get that out of the way. But why don't we work on the step, citing permits and also the enforcement, this bylaw.
Yeah, we can do
Would that work okay? Scott, you'd be okay with that?
So, I mean, I think what you're saying is you'd like to recommend that bylaw 1040 go to council excluding section 21.
Yeah, I would
Okay,
be
we'll do it that
totally
way.
fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, can I have a mover on that? Ian, seconded. John? All those in favor? Carried. All right. That's good, Scott?
Yep, yeah, for sure.
All right. All right, moving along. Building regulation bylaw amendment citing permits. Do you, Scott, are we gonna want to have a work view on this one?
Yeah, and so this is like Division 13, so we took that out of 1040, so we can talk about it today. Yeah, and it's just this is the whole section 13. We did take out small structures so this would be for park model RVs, shipping containers, which shipping containers are a big issue. Someone gets one delivered, and if you're selling them, if I was selling shipping containers, I could pile them all over my yard, wherever I wanted. But as soon as shipping container gets dropped off and it becomes a building, then it's subject to the zoning bylaw and setbacks and everything. And once a shipping container is delivered, usually it's not moving for a long time. So this would apply to park model shipping containers. Greenhouses, so greenhouses are excluded from the building code. So someone doesn't need a building permit for greenhouses as they're described here. And then fabric covered storage structures. So that's like your Costco tent. As soon as it's greater than 20 square meters, the building code applies to it. But anything smaller than that, we look at a citing permit. And that is one thing that irks the neighbors, is when someone, puts a Costco tent right on the property line, right, in their view. So those are the 4 things that apply to. So you can still have your 9x9 garden shed, and you don't need a citing permit for that. So it would just apply to those 4 structures. Again, we're trying to get ahead of something where, these units are showing up, they're not in the right spot, going through variances, or we're getting complaints about them and then we're going through variances, and just hoping to make it more clear for people when they're bringing these things in.
Okay, Scott, there isn't a recommendation for this. It's just a discussion. Is that correct?
Right. Free to make a recommendation.
Okay. I'll just start off quickly. Park model RVs. There's no definition in our zoning bylaw for a park model RV. What is a park model RV?
It'd be a Z241 unit.
Can we put that in there?
I'm pretty sure it's in our zoning bylaw.
I looked in the zoning bylaw last night under park models, and there wasn't anything under park model RVs. And it's just kind of, it's confusing. The park model RVs, people are going to think they might need a permit for their RV.
Right.
So that was one of the questions I had there.
That's we can add. I'm positive we have a definition. I'll have to.
I didn't see it in the under definitions. Park models.
Does that include a trailer? That's not, well, no, wheels. Okay.
Park model trailer. but it doesn't say park models RV,
And so, yeah,
page 19 of our zoning bylaw.
we can fix that.
Yeah, so I just,
Well, because an RV would be field.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Sure, so a park model is under CSA.
Yeah.
Standard, which can't exceed 530 square.
Same as any manufactured home. I thought it was more just a sizing thing.
Well, I think what Gord was saying, that we don't have it under RV, we have it as a.
No,
trailer.
exactly. It's not an RV. It's not something you're pulling behind your vehicle.
That's right.
Yeah, so this, that was just, it's just, it's very confusing for the general public to know whether the word RV should be at the end of that or park model trailer.
Yeah, so we'll make it consistent with the zoning bylaw.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, what are we?
We're discussing it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I really, sorry, Deb, did you have anything before?
No, all good.
Okay, I don't want to monopolize the time here, but I think I kind of pointed out some of my concerns around it. I thought we were going to kind of deal with this with the zoning that we were going to do for park models and put that in as, part of it. But
I understand where Scott's coming from on
I
this.
do too.
And this is, it is a problem. You could have a beautiful piece of property and the neighbor next all of a sudden slaps two sea cans over park models or whatever. Or fabric shed, like a tent right next door to you. And that happened in town, right across from the elementary school. Where the neighbors were in shock that there was that big of a tent was able to go in there. And it would be devastating if you had, you have a nice piece of property and something like that happens. So I know where you're coming from. I just wanted to know if we should refine this a little better and put some sizes in there and I know we do have some sizes on the fabric tents, but do we want to do that? Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the fabric structure is so you're suggesting a covered fabric structure rather than.
Yeah. Have a minimum and a maximum size, and the same thing for, I know park models, I know in our park model trailer, I think it's 50 square meters. It's so should we define all these so that there's not any, and ambiguity?
I like that. I think we could probably get to a happy place on this one with a little bit more definition, or I could get to a happier place on this one.
You're the one who wants to be prescriptive now.
Well, no, I want to be prescriptive on the other end of it, really, is that we're only going to be concerned if it's a problem sort of thing, right? And not a general blanket approach. And I think that's what you're saying, that if I agree, like if someone puts a shipping container right beside your beautiful backyard and your roses, then yeah, I can absolutely see why that would be a problem. And it would also be very concerning to the next door neighbor. And that's not quite fair either. So like I said, I can see merit in it. I think it's just, maybe we work on it a little bit more and we get to that.
Do we ask everybody to just feed Scott some information over the next week and he can digest it and see if, like shipping containers, they come in all different sizes, sometimes there's nothing matter, the little 4x4 cubic shipping container, but they come in 40-foot long ones, which is devastating if you're
Right.
if you're the neighbor and in this, in a nice quiet neighborhood.
So
It's got,
I think actually shipping containers aren't permitted in residential zones anyway, so it's more of a.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
So we have lots of shipping containers on them now, which are large and they don't have setbacks. Like, would that be something when we institute this, we would be asking them to move those shipping containers to conform?
Go ahead, Scott.
We tell people, you know, you can't put shipping containers in residential zones. Sometimes they're dropped off and it's like, oh, it's just till I complete this project or till I move my house or something. And usually we say, okay, we'll just kind of say, go ahead, you know, you've got everything in place. We know it's gonna be gone. You know, if it's there a year later, we'll enforce on it. If someone dropped someone off in John's backyard and nobody complained about it, we don't go looking for them. So.
No, I meant even just on commercial properties. Like, we have shipping containers on zoned commercial properties that certainly don't have the setbacks to the next building, right? And so the citing permits would also apply there, or are
Well,
we just talking residential?
Before the citing permit would apply before they bring it in, you're right. If they're there now and they're within the setbacks, they're a building and they should adhere to the setbacks. The shipping containers, a building is, as soon as you're using it as a building, it's a building. If you're, that's the thing, and weird, in commercial zone, if you're selling them, you're bringing them in and selling them, they're actually not buildings, but as soon as you open the doors, put something in and close the doors, it's
Okay. Does that work for you? We'll feed you some ideas and maybe next meeting, we'll hopefully have a more refined description of everything.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else? Deb, you okay?
Yep, all good.
All right, we'll move right along then. All right, development permit 23-196 DP 200 Main Street. Scott, take it away there.
So this is an application for a development permit. It's for 200 Main Street, which is the Healing Center. You may remember seeing this about 9 months ago. There's a development permit that was issued, and that was under the old zoning bylaw. And since that time, there reconfiguration of the site was required, mainly due to archaeology issue, but I think it's actually worked out favorably for the design of the building and maybe even for the parcel itself. But here's the property located, 200 Main Street. I think everybody's pretty familiar with where it is. Zone town, OCB designation is town center. And then with the new zoning bylaw, it became P5 zone, which is a zone unique to this property. Healing centers is what it's called. One of the main things we did is just to retain the space. So the parcel coverage is a little bit different, just to retain a little bit more green space in this zone. The next slide. So this is the new layout. Previous layout kind of had all the parking at the east end, and the building was a little bit longer, not as square. And so the building kind of poked out into or the middle of the property. So you can see the green space area not to be disturbed. So we identified that area as an area that's important and not to be disturbed. And so we had to kind of work around it. So moving the parking to the west side off Riverside, and then just changing the shape of the building. But yeah, the parking enclosure or the garbage enclosure, I think, also changed to the southeast corner. And other than that, I think it remained pretty close to what it was. I think there's 44 parking spaces, which is what is required. Plus there's some angled parking designed along the Main Street, sidewalks, buffer, a vegetative buffer, 1.5 meters, retaining as many trees as possible. And then the outside of the building changed a little bit on the next slide. You can't really, it's hard to use the perspective of from a square to a rectangle, but yeah, with just the shape of the building, but yeah, pretty much kept the same style. I think you'd have to delve a little more into it and read some of the philosophy behind the design of the building, but it's really interesting. Mirrors the shape of the mountains and the water, and the glass is going to be a bluey green color. So yeah, it should be a pretty amazing building once it's built. Staff's recommending that the development permit be issued.
Sounds good, Scott. On the agenda, there's not a recommendation for us to move this forward. It's just a more of a discussion.
No, you can make a recommendation.
Oh, okay. Just under, there is no recommendation on the information we got. It just says purpose. Okay. So we'll ask that,
Oh, the recommendation's up here, isn't it?
okay, it's on there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not on our committee reports. Okay. Recommend that the Planning Development Committee recommend council issue development permit 23-196 DP for the Healing Center for 200 Main Street. Can I have a mover? Deb, seconder? Ian? Discussion? Anybody have any comments? Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, more just a question. For the green space that's identified as not to be disturbed. So obviously you're not going to have the building extending into it. But initially when we had talked about the green space, there was this whole idea of usable green space where some things are done with the green space to make it more usable as a gathering center and outside gathering and such. So I'm not talking about anything significant, but is that still an option, or do we have to leave it exactly as it is?
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I think the goal is to start a little bit of community engagement and find out what people want to see there. Also working with our partner on the project, Splatchen, see what they would like to see there. And then there's the archaeological issue as well. What can we do there? So
Yeah.
I have a couple questions to answer, but definitely it's going to be an enhanced green space, community gathering spot. That's the goal. But what it looks like right now, we don't know.
Yeah, because I would like to see that we deal with it respectfully and do not, like if it's 5 feet down, we're not doing anything that way. But I really would like to see it as an enhanced green space that the community actually does come to and use.
Yeah, good point, Deb. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. And further to that, Deb, I just wanted to point out that part of our grant is to incorporate some Indigenous elements on the exterior, like on the outside green space. So we're going to be working with Splatchen. There used to be some circular elements attached to the building on the outside. So those have now been removed, and we will work with Splatchen on something not touching the building, but outside of their traditional healing space that will be a little small kind of pit house or something that is appropriate for Splatchen. So there will be a small little element there, and the rest of the green space, yes, we will get some engagement on that and make sure we're not, touching anything that we're not supposed to be, but cleaning it up and making it a really good, nice, natural gathering space.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Go ahead, Ian.
Well, I mean, I support a new health center, healing center. I always struggled with this project because of the location. I'm not a fan of the 200 Main Street location. And I just feel like I want to, during the election, I said I didn't support it at that location. I would prefer it to be in another one. However, we're at this point where we are so far down this road. All the work has been done architecturally twice now to make it fit into 200 Main and that site. And, despite my misgivings about that location, I want a healing center more. So that's why I'm going to support it. I think though, and I strongly stress that we should be out in the community more right now, talking to them about what's going into the building. And I know we've had this discussion at council. I think that would be a really good thing. And if we did that earlier rather than later, and trying to have people clear and engaged on what is actually going there. And I think once that information gets out there, there's going to be, I hope, a higher comfort level of what's there and what's the purpose of it and how it's all going to work. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. But the community, I think, the community needs a new health center, a new healing center. And And this is where it is. To move it now would just be an enormous waste of money. Also, I would get horribly outvoted on council, but you know, even if the scenario was we could move it, it'd be a terrible waste of money to do that at this point. So anyways, that's my way of explanation, but I am supporting this.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, anybody else have any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? I can't see Deb, but I think she's on there.
Yeah, there she
Oh,
is.
there's Deb. Okay, thanks, Deb. Carried. That's great. Thanks very much. Okay, moving right along. Our last item on the agenda is development permit 23-160 DP for 113 Wet Up and 1005 Riverside Avenue. Scott.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So this one there's no recommendation on this one. I think this one is more here for discussion. There's going to be a public hearing on the 24th for the zoning, and I wanted to bring the development permit just out into the public so you can see it and understand the process relationship between the development permit and the zoning bylaw. So this is one property, 113 Wet Up and 1005 Riverside. For some reason, it says 113 on the Riverside side, but we'll fix that. So the property right now is used as a marina, boat storage. And then on 1005, there's a church there, an old church, and then the residential unit. You can see that in the ortho photo. OCP designation split between Riverside Transitional and Commercial Waterfront Town Center. And the zoning at this time is MUR2, which is the multi-residential zone that allows short-term rentals, and proposals to rezone it to C3, which is the resort commercial, so waterfront commercial zone. So that's what is going to be considered by council on the 24th. Then there's a public hearing as well. So one thing, at the close of the public hearing, council can't receive any additional information. So I wanted to get this information out there from this group, it's public, and we'll make council aware that we have this process happening. So everybody knows that there is another step here. So then the next slide. So this is the site plan. It's 103 units, kind of one-story units. Less than 312 square feet. You see the drive aisles, the area around is the green you can see is the vegetative buffers. But there's more information is required for this. So it's incomplete, but I think it's just good to bring for discussion. Part of the role of this committee is to give advice to the owner and the developer, and Norm and Kevin here are here, so they're here to hear some advice from you. As you can see, one thing that I think is a pretty important issue is right now it shows a beach and a volleyball court within that 15 meters of the lake, and I think it shows the waterfront walkway also along the high watermark. So as part of the development permit, then they're going to have to go through that repaired areas process where they assess the 30 meters. They did provide a report by a biologist who kind of assessed the current conditions, we'll say, and he has said that, you know, that 15 meters is probably going to be what the required setback is going to be, and there's going to have to be some plantings involved in that 15 meters. But there is a form that needs to be filled out, be sent to the province approves it. So we don't know what that's going to look like right now, but I can tell you it's not going to be beach volleyball court. It's not going to be accepted in there. Maybe something else that we've talked about is, no, if we go back to that one, no, or one more, is on the Riverside, on the east side of Riverside. So right now the development permit area allows for a 0 meter setback to allow storefronts on the sidewalk. And the road cross section right now shows sidewalk on both sides of the road. I don't know if you remember, we did have a previous development permit. We're actually moving towards not having sidewalk on the east side of Riverside. So I think it would be, you know, acceptable to not require the sidewalk. or the storefront necessarily on that side of the road. So what is being proposed right now is removing that sidewalk you can see in the boulevard and providing some angled parking. So there is a need for parking
You're talking on the right side?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
On the right side. So yeah, kind of removing that boulevard and sidewalk and having some angled parking, still having some landscaping there. Then on the west side, right now, these buildings are showing a 0 meter setback. Part of it is like, hey, you get the benefit of 0 meter setback because you're providing access to the street, you know, like you're walking downtown and you just take a right and you're in the store. So they're probably not going to offer any of that commercial aspect of it. So what we've asked for is something that enhances that area. So they're getting the benefit of the 0 meter setback, but how are they going to enhance that where someone's walking down the street with an ice cream and they're not just walking along a blank wall or a fence? So that's something that Kevin's working on, and the next draft of the bylaw will look at that. You can see the buffers that are proposed. I've already heard from you know, neighbors that you know, they're concerned about this density in this area, and they'd like to see some kind of, you know, enhanced buffer. They'd like to know, like, for sure what the fence type is going to be. And the development permit, I think we said vinyl panel fencing. But yeah, just you know, maybe some more details on that. Another concern was noise from this development on the neighbors. You know, there are some residential properties, and you know, when people are coming for weekends and things, they tend to be a bit noisier. So ideas on how that sound can be buffered. That's what I've heard. So that's what we'll work on with the developer on getting some of those questions answered. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen for the public hearing. So you know, council can make a decision on rezoning the property, and it can be rezoned, just knowing that we're probably going to address some of these other issues with the developer as we're moving forward. And you know, community feedback, you know, we'll take some community feedback, we'll bring it back to this group at least one more time, maybe 2 more times, just to make sure that, you know, everybody's hearing everybody, and we'll be able to move forward with a developer that people know what they're getting. I think that's the key, is that's what the development permit does. Is there another slide, Steffi? Oh yeah, the outside. So this is what they're going to look like. Added some materials and the colors in the development permit, mostly hardy type smartboard finishing, some color to add to them, glass railings, some wood accents, and yeah, they're in kind of 5 and 10 unit buildings, and I think they're probably going to look great, and they do meet the development permit requirements as far as the visually goes. So more information, we're going to work with Kevin and Norm on getting that information. But yeah, this is really an opportunity to get out in the public, and then give this group time to work with Kevin on what you think would be appropriate here.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Anybody have any comments or concerns, questions? Well, we got the developers in the house.
Perfect.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, no, thank you, Scott. I think this is really good to get out in the community, people to know what's going on the site or what's proposed to go on the site. I mean, I'll be frank, I've gotten quite a few comments on the project, got a lot of comments on how much you want to sell it for. You know, that's business. But there's been concerns, certainly, that were brought up to me after it first got there publicized about the density of the site. And I guess, you know, specifically the amount of surface area that is being taken up on the site. So it looks like everything is either parking spots or roadways or actual physical buildings as well, other than what won't be a beach area. I agree with you there. I think the chances of them allowing sand there on the riparian area is probably pretty slim. But and I don't quite know what the developer could do to alleviate some of those concerns, but that's what I've heard. And maybe I'll just throw it over to you to to comment on some of the concerns that, you know, I guess Scott just brought up, but also just about the density of the site and, you know, I think everything is either paved or has a building on it, right? Other than the setback at the, water.
Okay, Kevin, you wanna? Yeah, you can stand, you wanna go to the mic? Or is the mic working? It's great. Yeah, because if you don't go to the mic, then people online can't hear.
Tap it.
Oh, just 1 second, it's coming. Oh,
No. Oh, well.
okay,
That's thing.
Yeah.
Let's say,
go ahead anyways. There you go.
there it goes. Perfect.
Regarding density, this is a waterfront development, so the price of the land is. It's up there, it's expensive for what it is. So we need density to actually make the project viable. Parking was a big concern, you know, if you've got a boat trailer, you need somewhere to put it, so we've got, I believe, around 7 parking stalls for every 5 units. I think in some cases there's 8 parking stalls per 5, but let's count on 7. You know, if we're not putting sand in the riparian area, then I guess put lawn there. It doesn't much matter to me one way or another. So I think what were the other concerns you had?
Go ahead, Darian.
Well, I guess just. Yeah, I guess it really came down to like the concerns I heard, and it was about the density of the site, how many units are going in there, the size of it, and then just, I guess, kind of the look and feel of it is most of it, like I said, other than the area at the water side, it's all private buildings, asphalt, parking. Right. I guess just some residents had some concerns over that, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I understand the financial aspect of it.
I guess if we wanted more green space, we could have 1 parking stall per unit and then have lawn. So you'd end up with a lot more lawn, but a lot more maintenance. At the end of the day, I think, you know, in a resort type product, you do need parking, but you know, if that's the concern is green space, we can certainly exchange parking for green space. That's
Yeah.
that's the be all to end all. I would be, you know, happy to switch over. Less parking, usually in developments who want more parking. So as far as out on Riverside, angular parking on the other side of Riverside where the church is, that's a great idea that Scott brought up. So that's, you know, easy to put that in. And the other concern was the buildings now are 0.83, I believe, meters from the property line, and then we thought that if we moved the sidewalk away from the fence by 5 feet, then you'd have almost 8 feet of green space between the buildings on Riverside and the sidewalk. But you know, at the end of the day, I don't believe the town wants to do anything out there because it's all going to be ripped up. From my understanding, gonna upgrade all of Riverside in the near future, so. Whatever the town wants for that, I mean, we've got, basically, we can paint any picture you want, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be doing any of it because of the upgrades. So I guess I need clear direction on what you want, and I'm happy to put that on the plans.
Okay,
We're, time is of the essence for us. We don't hit the market, right now or soon, then we miss an opportunity,
you missed the season.
miss a season,
Yeah. Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of general comments, because I've heard some things too, but like what this isn't is affordable housing. It's not small to make it affordable. It's small to give you that lake act, be on the lake and give you that lakefront. Like I've heard a lot of complaints from people since Twin Anchors moved over to Old Town that the downtown has like kind of languished somewhat or died. Bringing in a development like this, which really isn't much more than a hotel room, a livable hotel room, people are going to be going out of it and going into our downtown. So in terms of the revitalization of the downtown, you've got the landscaping around the periphery. I think extra parking is kind of critical for something like this, because the people are showing up with their boat and their car. But yeah, they're getting out of those rooms and they're going to the restaurants and they're going to the shops and they're wandering around downtown. I think, like it takes all sorts of projects in a town like ours to make things work. And I think this is part of a mix that makes sense for us.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
I could comment
Go ahead, Kevin.
on the affordable housing side of things. We did the same floor plan in Vernon, identical, except in a 5-story format. We've got a lot of nurses, restaurant workers living in this product where they have pride of ownership. Very livable. I've lived in the same square footage when I go to Hawaii. It's their studios. Very comfortable. We got people. What surprised me in Vernon was we thought it would be a bunch of Airbnb, but it's not. It's year-round living, and most of it is. And the Airbnb almost feels like, they're alienated. People don't want that in their private ownership. So we're seeing more and more of the year-round now. Mostly a lot of single women. So.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Go ahead, Doreen.
The marina, what's gonna happen with that? Or what's your plans with that? Like the boat docks and.
So the marina will be for the homeowners to rent. I'm going to maintain ownership of the marina, but it's strictly for the homeowners. Scott brought up the thing of where would anyone else park?
That's exactly what I was saying.
That's where can't park on Weddell Street. That's happening right now. And
Yeah, so then that, I guess, brings into focus why you need the parking, right? The extra parking. Because that's why you need all that parking, is because they're gonna have boats there or ski-doos or whatever, yeah.
boat trailers.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, I voted for this before, I'll vote for it again. I think, I support it. It's because right now we have basically giant storage lots there and on some really good prime property. And I agree with everything Deb said, that, we need to get people downtown. We need to get more housing of any sort built in Sycamoose. You know, and I thank the planning department for getting this out there because I want people to look at it. I think there will be some pushback on it and, you know, certain segment of the community. But, you know, my view really is any sort of housing we can get built is going to ultimately benefit the community. And we need to get some of these lots that have been underutilized, utilized. So, you know, I support it, and I think it's hopefully, I don't know where we could post this, where we get some feedback and people can come to council and bring their concerns forward, and we can just kind of deal with it. But, you know, I guess the only other question I would have is how's the interest?
The interest?
Yeah,
12 registrations per day.
okay. So you feel pretty confident this is gonna sell once you're able to,
Yes.
that's my sense too, so
Okay,
let's get her done.
you good with that, Ian?
Yep.
Okay, I just couple comments. I support this project as well. I kind of think that I mean, people are worried about the density. I mean, if you were to go up, you would have higher density. If you were to go up 5 stories, you would probably have higher density in this development as well. And no, it's needed for the community. The property is underutilized. It's I mean, it would be nice to see higher density myself in that area. I mean, that's what the channel, you know, seems to be going that way. And I support it. I think it's going to be good for the community, and looking forward to getting it to council so we can get it voted on.
Just an FYI, if you did 5-story on that property, you'd be up over 360 units.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, I thought I was done, but I'm not. So if you have that much interest, why not go higher density on it?
It's a financial burden to, you know, have heavy construction for 16, 18 months today. It used to be 8 months.
Right.
But, you know, all of a sudden you're in the ditch for $20 million before even turning over $1. So by going to a single story product, I can be turning over cash flow within 6 months.
Would you consider? Oh, I'm just throwing it out here, and you know, I mean, could you do half the site higher density and then the other site lower density, or it just doesn't make sense when you're designing it?
I'm getting too old for that.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. John, go ahead.
I'm totally in favor of this idea, and you actually put some of my concerns to ease with what you just said with the whole building being one level. Because I really hate to see some of our resort projects like 2 Mile, and we have another one on Main Street that didn't get finished, and there is a substantial cost to building that original foundation. So that was kind of one of my big concerns, really, and reservations on it, was the fact of, will it get to completion with sales and whatnot? You know, I don't want to see another project half completed in this town. But that does make sense that being one level, we can actually see it happen in a relatively quick time period. So I had questions about that, but that last statement you made actually put some of those concerns of mine to ease. I like that idea behind it for that. Not going multiple stories makes a bit of sense to me.
Good.
Yeah, the half completed, you know, foundations, just for instance, you know, the old foundation that's on
Three boys.
Riverside now.
Yeah.
That's been there for years. Just to give you an idea of cost, in today's dollars, you'd be between $12 and $16 million just for that foundation today. So, and you can see, okay, now the developer, if there's anything goes wrong, you're bankrupt. And so
Okay. Anybody else have any more questions for Kevin? All good. Everybody here supports it, Kevin. We're looking forward to coming to council and voting on it, and let's keep the program moving.
Great, yeah, I just want to get some clarity from Scott on what he requires for Riverside, if it's a conversation in council, or is it a drawing, or what?
Go ahead there, Scott.
So I think to complete the development permit, we'll want a drawing of what you're proposing for Riverside. But you're right, it's in the capital plan to replace the water line on Riverside, so that's gonna impact what happens on Riverside, so would make sense to start construction or anything on Riverside now, or to landscape it now. What we probably do is come up with a design and a servicing agreement, and then either cash in lieu, or you construct it, in X amount of time, probably is what can happen. But right now, today, I think, let's focus on the public hearing, getting that completed, and then we can continue the conversation on what it's gonna look like on Riverside for this development permit, but a design of, how you're gonna contribute to that lively streetscape through landscape.
All right, great, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. All right, that's good. Well, moving right along. Okay, thanks very much, Scott, and for bringing that to us, and we're looking forward to seeing it at council.
So we don't need, I guess we already made a recommendation to council, right?
It's the zoning.
On the zone.
On the zoning, should we be making a recommendation, or are you asking us to make a recommendation?
No, because we want to complete the package before.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
All good. Okay, well, we'll go to the adjournment. Recommend that the Planning and Development Committee meeting for May 17th, 2023 be adjourned at 10:21. Have a mover, Ian, seconder, John, all those in favor? Harry? Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, so just as a heads up, you guys, I don't see being able to make the next Planning and Development Committee meeting because I am going to be in Europe and with the time zone and everything else. I may try and log in, but don't expect me.
Next meeting isn't for 3 weeks, I believe.
In 3 weeks?
Yeah, so there isn't one on.
Oh,
May
yeah,
3rd.
that's right. I'm actually flying back that day. So it's because I'm flying out today, I'm flying back that day, which makes it even less likely that I can attend because I'm probably going to be in the air.
So to be on the next meeting will be on the 7th. Yeah.
Deb's slacking off.
I am. I can't be. June 7th. Yeah, I'm flying back that day. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, enjoy your trip there, Deb.
Oh,
Thank you.